Anyway, while I was sitting here riding out the storm, I figured I'd come in, take a look at a piece of equipment, maybe work on a few things. I am home by myself right now. The wife is out west at her sister's, and the grandkids are over in town with their mother. So what a better time to come out here in the shop and do what we do best, or do what we love best. And this is a HP 8656B signal generator that was sent in by a viewer to be looked at. It's 0.1 to 990 megahertz. HP makes some good equipment. This thing is built like a tank. It's huge and it weighs about 45 pounds. And the problem that he was having with it is he said that to higher in frequency, to lower in amplitude, it would put out. Now, a signal generator should, if you set it at 10 megahertz and you put out, 50 microvolts at 10 megahertz, it should stay at 50 microvolts all the way up in frequency as high as you can go. But it says this one starts dropping frequency. So I got it set at 10 megahertz and it's at -7 dBm. As you can see right here, it's reading dBm, so that's -7 dBm. So we're going to take a look at it up here on the scope and see what our signal looks like. And there's our waveform on the old Tech 465, and you can see it's covering 3 divisions. That's how I got it set at the moment. So what we're going to do, we're going to come back down here and we're going to hit frequency and go 20 megahertz. Still at -7 dBm. And I can see we're still covering 3 divisions on the scope. So I'm going to go ahead and go to 30 megahertz and no change, still at 3 divisions. We'll go to 40 megahertz. I think I'm starting to see a little bit of a slight change now, as it's like the amplitude has dropped just a little bit. So let's try it at 50. And it's dropped even more. So we're going to bump it on up to about 70 megahertz. Yes, and it is falling out. So let's go to 90 megahertz. And you can see now this is a 100 megahertz scope, and you see we have probably lost 1 division. So if I move it up, we're at about 2 divisions, and we'll set it, it's like 1 volt per division. So now we're at just a little better than 1 division on the scope. So yes, it does seems to be dropping in amplitude as you go up in frequency. Now I do have a BLCT with a 50 ohm load on it to balance it out, and you can see we are at 90 megahertz. Alright, so again we're back at 10 megahertz, -7 dBm. We'll look at the spectrum analyzer, and you can see we at 10 megahertz with a 2 megahertz span, and we're showing about -7.85 dBm. So it's pretty much, spot on. We got to take in consideration that, we are getting some loss through this cable. So that would take care of the 0.87, 0.88 dBm, but that's okay. So what we're going to do now is go ahead and hit frequency. I'm going to go to 20 megahertz, and we'll do the same thing over on the spectrum analyzer. Frequency 20 megahertz, and we'll go to peak, and at 20 megahertz we're still at about minus 7.82 dBm, so no problem. We're going to bump on up to 50 megahertz. Frequency 50 megahertz, and we'll peak it. This is about minus 8.11 dBm, still very close. We're going to take it on up to 100 megahertz. Frequency 100 megahertz, peak, and we're at minus 8.23 dBm, still pretty much spot on. I'm not seeing that much of a problem. Frequency 500 megahertz, and we'll do the spectrum analyzer at 500 megahertz, and we'll hit peak, and we're still at minus 8.75 dBm. So I think we're getting the picture here. Okay, we'll go ahead and we'll go down here and we'll turn the RF off. That way we ain't saturating our spectrum analyzer. So I'm sitting here thinking, you know, why he's showing that his amplitude is dropping. Now, I'll be honest with you, it's been a long time since I had my hands on one of these HP 8656Bs. In fact, the last one I touched, which has been 7-8 years ago, was the 8656A. And then I have the 8640 myself that I use most of the time. So I haven't done a lot of talking with the gentleman, but I think I may see what the problem is already. He is probably using a scope to look at the signal, and if he's feeding directly from his RF output into his scope, now you got to remember the 465 is only a 100 megahertz scope, and if he's not using a T with a dummy load on the side of it, then he's going to not read accurately. And a 100 megahertz scope, he's not going to read that accurately anyway. Now you saw from 10 megahertz right on up to about 70 megahertz, it was pretty much showing the same, just about the same amplitude that you know, across those bands. When we got on up above that, around 90, it started dropping quickly. The scope just cannot handle the information being sent to it to display a constant amplitude on the oscilloscope. The spectrum analyzer now, that's a different story. Now you saw all the way from 10 to 500, it was minus 8 dBm, 0.7.8, very close. Like I say, loss in the cable was giving us that extra. Now I could go ahead and clear that out and probably make it read spot on with this all the way through, but you know, we're going to get a lot of loss in this cable. So just for fun, we'll go in here and I'm going to hit frequency, and I'm going to punch in 800 megahertz. We'll turn the RF back on. We'll go back to the spectrum analyzer. Frequency 800 megahertz. Go to peak, minus 8.71 dBm. Still pretty much spot on all the way through the whole band. Now this machine is designed to go to 990 megahertz, so we'll hit frequency 990 megahertz. We'll do the same here, frequency 990 megahertz. And we'll go to peak, and there we're getting about minus 9.21 dBm. And you know, higher in frequency, more loss we're going to get in the cable, more difference we're going to get on the spectrum analyzer. I have the Kenwood TS2000 just sitting here on top of the machine, and we got a cable going into antenna port 1, and we're on 10 megahertz on both the radio and the HP 8656B, and we're at about minus 103 dBm. And as you can see, we have a signal, and we're just about at about 7 on the S meter. So what we're going to do now is change frequency and look at it there, look at a couple of bands on here, and just see what kind of reading we get on our S meter compared to the output level amplitude of the signal generator. Okay, we now have both units tuned to 29 megahertz, still at minus 103 dBm, and we're showing about S10 on the meter. So yeah, it does look like we might have a little bit of difference in output, but this is showing we went higher in frequency and we gained 2 S units. Now this is also could be how this radio receives on different bands, but just to get a general idea of what's going on, this is how we'll look at it. Okay, we've got 144 megahertz punched in. I got to switch antenna ports. Okay, switched antenna ports, have the RF turned on, still at minus 103, and you can see we're at about 2 on the S meter. Now we're also on the VHF band. Again, a lot of things are changing here that could cause this problem. You see we are receiving a signal. And about minus 93 dBm, we're back at S9. Okay, I switched over to the 440 megahertz antenna input, and we have both units set for 440. We're back at minus 103 dBm, and the radio is back at S9. Now this radio, VHF is not that great on this radio. In fact, I've had several of them that VHF was not as good on the Kenwood TS2000. UHF and HF seems to be perfect. VHF, not that great. But maybe later on we'll go ahead and do some mods to this. There's some mods out for better VHF receive capabilities. So it looks like this radio may be a good candidate for that in the future. So as you can see, I'm not really seeing that much of a problem with the piece of equipment. The amplitude looks pretty strong all the way from 10 megahertz up to 990 megahertz. Able to test the radio out fine. I just don't see the problem that he was talking about. Now maybe the problem happens when it's been on for a while, or maybe in shipping it caused an issue and made the thing go back to work. But what does kind of get my attention is he has two of these units and they're both doing the exact same thing. Now I'm not going to say user error. I'm just not going to say that, but it's possible it could be a little bit of lack of understanding on how to use the equipment. At this moment I can't say. Again, he said he had two of them. He would send them in and we'll take a look at them, see if we can fix them. And there was a deal in this, but I can't do my customers wrong. I can't tell them one thing to benefit me, so I have to be honest with them. I see nothing wrong with the piece of equipment. Now I haven't even cracked the manual on this thing. I think it's 400, 500 pages, and the service manual is probably the same. It's just basic understanding on how to set stuff up, but I'm not seeing the problem that he was talking about. So what I'll do is get back with the owner, see how he was measuring the amplitude, and then I'll see if I can duplicate the same thing. So I'm thinking maybe using the scope to do this without a 50 ohm terminator. I have the machine set back up at -7, putting out 10 megahertz FM, and I plug directly into the oscilloscope with no T, and you can see we now have 5.5 divisions on the screen, and to bring it back down somewhere close, that's 3 divisions. So we're at 0.2 divisions on the scope now. And if I do frequency 20 megahertz, let's go to 50 megahertz. Yeah, it's shrinking real quick. Let's see, 90 megahertz. Yeah, you can see it's just about down to about 1.5 divisions. So I think that's what the issue is however he was measuring the output of this machine was not actually reading correctly. I never use a scope to look at, I use the scope to look at the waveform of the signal generators. I do not use the scope to measure amplitude. That's when I use the spectrum analyzer to do that with. So we'll play around with this a little bit more and see what we can come up with. But again, I'm not seeing it. And then we'll probably do a tear down on it, open it up to have a look at it, just do some checking and snooping around, make sure cables are plugged in good and this and that. But it's a very, very well built piece of equipment. If you've never seen the inside of it, I think you would really appreciate the quality of the construction that HP put in these things back in the day. I mean, they are just built like tanks. And yes, I would love to own one of them. It's just a good machine. It'll make for a good machine to have on the other bench over there. In fact, as soon as I finish cleaning out the room, I'm setting up another bench over in the other room to work on, and I'm talking with somebody about coming in and doing a little help from time to time. So we'll see how that goes. I like to have several signal gens on every bench. I mean, right here, just on this bench, I have 3 signal generators here. But it depends on what I'm working on. You know, I have the Rigol 815, we have the IFR Super S, and down on the bottom of that we have the HP 8640. Yeah, but I really think it'll be fun just to get in here and tear this thing down, look at it, look at the construction of it, and as we're doing that, you know, we'll check stuff out, make sure everything's looking alright. Until then, I'll get up with the owner and probably direct him to this video to look just to see, so I can understand better how he was measuring the output signal. Hey guys, just want to give y'all a little update before the hurricane comes through. Wildlife area, the boat ramp, and I'm standing on the floating dock, which is bottomed out at the minute. It's basically sitting right on the bed of the river. But I always come down here to see, you know, just how the water looks before a hurricane. This kind of tells me what's going to happen after the hurricane. And you can see there's the bridge over there, crosses 222 here on the Tar River, and it's probably about 22 foot below the bridge. Now back in 1999 when Floyd hit, this the water was over that bridge. That tells you just how high this water does get. Now Florence is not expecting to come exactly this way, but it looks like it's dropping off around Wilmington, then heading down a little bit and going across South Carolina and back up. I'm sorry about all the wind noise, but you know, this is real life. So last week you could actually just about walk across this river. So it's probably up a couple of feet here. You know, no problems like it is right now. Just to show you that water level was down to about that block that's sitting under there. So it's come up some, you know, but if you look, you can tell that the water is going out, and this is probably coming from upstream where some of the bigger cities are opening the gates and letting more water out to be prepared for the new rainwater that's going to come in. So looking at this, you know, I don't see a big problem to worry about. As you can see, when I turn around, you know, it's got to go way uphill, which I have seen this whole area here flooded way on up there. So, you know, you're talking about 13, 14 foot here, and that's after real heavy rains. So, you know, the problem with the Tar River, it has no wetlands around it. The wetlands that's around this river is housing developments, and luckily we're way up above. We're probably, you know, 14 foot above that bridge where I'm at. So looking at this, you know, depends on how much rain. They're talking, you know, 15 inches. But in this area, probably this will be on the northwest. How much rain they get and how much gets dumped here to the Tar River. And this way goes on down through the town of Greenville and right on out to the Pamlico Sound, which then feeds into the ocean, which is about 85 miles in that direction. So looking at the river, it doesn't look that bad, but we will be keeping an eye on this. Now back at the house, about 5:42 in the afternoon. We just had a nice little rainstorm, wind at about 30-35 miles an hour. And it's calmed down a little bit now. But the radar showing several bands of rain coming off the outer edge of the hurricane. So yeah, water. It's gonna get a little wet and windy. Okay, so I've been sitting here tracking the storm while I'm out in the shop here, you know, looking over a couple pieces of equipment. And we can see that the Hurricane Florence is sitting just outside of North Carolina, and the way the prediction falls is that it's going to move right on in towards about Wilmington, and right around here is around Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. So you know, Wilmington's down just about at the border. Here's the border running up through here. We're all the way up here in Greenville, and you can see we got spotted rainfall. Now as we move on into 11 o'clock tonight, you can see here more rain here, pretty hard rain up around Greenville. And we go to wind gust, we're seeing about 51 miles an hour on the wind gust. But the precipitation is mostly what I'm concerned about. As we move on into Friday, we'll see that Florence is on move down here into South Carolina, and it's coming right on in just south of Myrtle Beach. So it's going to move quite a bit down, but you can see just how huge this hurricane has become. It's, you know, it's got back out here in the water, and it grows a little bit. Into Saturday, it's pretty much dissipated, not much of it, but we're still all this rain here, lots of rain. And the main concern is this rain up from around Raleigh and Rocky Mountain stuff comes on down the Tar River to already swollen Sound and rivers up here around the coast. So nowhere for this rain to go off. If we look at precipitation from the 13th, this is about what we're dealing with here. Lots of rain around the Greenville area. It's showing about 6.5 inches. Up around Durham, you know, 5 inches. On down here around the Piedmont area, you know, 11 to 12 inches. So yeah, still going to be a lot of water that's going to be accumulating here. As you can see, huge storm surge. So, you know, as far as the hurricane, no problems whatsoever. I don't see anything that's, you know, as far as damaging wind, anything. That's going to be okay. It's going to be the aftermath coming around late Sunday to Tuesday morning of how much of this water is going to come down this way, and that's when the heavy flooding will start. And something else I want to tell you guys are awesome. I mean, just completely awesome. Let me get rid of that pop up there. First place guy, he's at 806 votes. Like I say, he has over 40,000 followers out on Facebook. He doesn't do any YouTube videos, but you know, the thing was of this contest, you posted the video on YouTube and then he linked it to his Facebook page. When he did that, he shot from the bottom to the top. Like I say, over 40,000. I'm a little over 8K, just under 9K of subscribers, and here we are at 743 votes. Not far. I think this morning I was within about 30 votes of them. So, you know, these guys are watching it, they're voting every day, and you guys have been doing awesome to keep this contest going. So I appreciate all y'all's determination and tenacity of getting this the votes up. Many thanks. I have not had time to go back and comment on any videos. In the last video I did, just have not had any time whatsoever to do that. I'm planning on doing that this weekend, as long as I can keep power and internet access. So, you know, big thanks to all you guys. So thanks again, guys, and I'll get more updates on the how things are here at the radio shop sometime over the weekend. Well, after the weekend is up, we got to see how the first of the week starts looking, and then, you know, maybe it's back to normal business out here. We do take these storms like this serious. We've been through 2 floods here since 1999, and you know, so when that happens, we're always looking to see what's going on. More to come on this HP 56B. We'll get the covers off of it and get a look in it in a very, very near video. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next. Bye now.